What's going on YouTube? GSN right here. So in today's video I have some great news for those of you waiting for the iOS 14.5, 14.5.1 and 14.4 jailbreak. iOS 14.6 is out and it does patch a lot of kernel vulnerabilities, including one from Google Project Zero from EMBeer. And as you're probably aware, EMBeer usually releases their vulnerabilities. But before we get into that, this video is brought to you by AppTrans, a free software that allows you to transfer applications from your device to another or to do backups for your WhatsApp conversations and so on. You can find it for both Windows and macOS on the iMobi website, and definitely check it out in the link below. So today Apple released iOS 14.6. It's now available for everybody, including the 8.12, 8.13 and so on. And this is actually currently signed, but the 14.5.1 is also signed. Unfortunately 14.5 isn't. Now on the size in here, it may not look like a big change from 14.5.1 to 14.6. Both of them for the iPhone 12 Pro are 5.87 gigs. However, the changes are major in terms of jailbreaking, so definitely do not update the 14.6. Stay on 14.5.1, 14.5, 14.4 or 14.4.2 if you have a newer device, and do not update the 14.6, and there is a good reason for that. The 14.6 patches a ton of kernel vulnerabilities that are usable for jailbreak purposes, including one from Google Project Zero. Now there is one from Linus Henze as well. Here it says a malicious application may be able to execute arbitrary code with kernel privileges. Pretty good, pretty useful. And then we have a couple more here, even from an anonymous researcher, but then we have one from Google Project Zero from EMBeer. For those of you who are unaware, we did use vulnerabilities released by EMBeer in jailbreaks before, and in fact, if you go ahead here on the Google Project Zero bug tracker, you can see that EMBeer has released a ton of vulnerabilities during the time, and if you actually sort up from 2014, you can see he's been focused on Apple quite a lot, but he does have a lot of them in here reported. All of these are available and you can open them and see the code that triggers the vulnerability, and you can even download the exploit or the proof of concept sometimes. So EMBeer is known for releasing their vulnerabilities, especially under Google Project Zero, but they do have a time frame. Usually they wait 90 days from the time of the patching and of course from when the patch got released to the point where they release it. However, the vulnerabilities from Google Project Zero usually automatically mean that they are going to get released, which is pretty damn useful because we might be able to use it for Uncover or Taurine even on 8.12, 8.13 and 8.14 devices, but not only. So it's very important if you want to jailbreak your device as soon as possible on 14.4, 14.4.1, 14.4.2, 14.5 or 14.5.1, stay on any of those firmware. Do not update the 14.6 because all of these vulnerabilities here are already patched in 14.6. So it does look pretty good. These vulnerabilities seem to be pretty powerful in here. Even this one by Google Project Zero says, quote, an application may be able to execute arbitrary code with kernel privileges. So it does escalate the privileges, which is great. And the vulnerability type is a buffer overflow, which was addressed with improved size validation. So it's a sort of memory corruption. Once you trigger buffer overflow, you go past a specified buffer, past their normal size it should basically occupy in the memory, and whatever is past that specified size would basically override something else in the memory. Now if you're able to craft your exploit in a way that it overrides whatever you want to override, for example your privileges or some port in order to get, task for PAD0 or stuff like that, you may be able to actually transform that in a proper exploit to use in a jailbreak, because at that point you might be able to control the memory corruption in a way that it makes sense to you. Now of course, normally a buffer overflow wouldn't exactly be useful for Uncover or Taurine as it is without an exploit, because really a buffer overflow would just crash the device or crash the process or something like that, because you just corrupt the memory. But if you corrupt it in a way that is controlled, it can be very, very useful for jailbreak purposes. This is basically how every jailbreak exploit works, and this is how they worked in the past few years. You get a memory corruption bug, you manage to corrupt the memory that you want, in the places that you want, so that you escalate your privileges or get task for PAD0, and then of course you apply the patches you want using those primitives. So this is pretty good for the jailbreak community, for both people who use Taurine and Uncover. I'm not mentioning Checkra1n here because that's in a completely different league. Checkra1n will probably start working on 14.6 very, very soon because it doesn't need a kernel exploit to work. It just needs to be updated, by the developers. So for those of you who are interested in checkrain, that's probably coming very soon. But for those of you with newer devices like the A12, A13 and A14, Uncover and Taurine are your only option, and those might be able to get updated with vulnerabilities like this from EMBeer, or the one by Linus Henze, or the one by Airy here, or this one, Anonymous Researcher, and so on. There are a lot of kernel vulnerabilities in here, and not only that, there are multiple other vulnerabilities that could be useful. So that's actually great. There are a couple of WebKit ones as well, but yeah, these can be usable for a jailbreak from Safari, like without an IPA. You just go to a website in Safari, press jailbreak, and you jailbreak right from Safari. That would be pretty cool, and those WebKit vulnerabilities may be usable if we can chain them. But yeah, pretty good news. Stay lower than 14.6 for now. I'm gonna keep you updated with anything that's going on, so thank you for watching. I'm GeoSnow, and peace out.